All right, so why do we love pseudoscientific claims? I say we in all complete sincerity because it is pretty hilarious how scientific I get when talking about psychology or any kind of psychologically related concept, and how pseudoscientific I can get when talking about other kinds of things. It's just amazing. Why? Well, I have a couple of videos here, and again, if you watch the slideshow, if you watch the PowerPoints as a slideshow, you can click first on this one and then on this one. The word Phoenix will take you to a CNN report where they're interviewing the former governor of Arizona. And he's talking about this Phoenix Lights event that happened back in like 1998, I think, if I recall correctly. Then, if you click on this one that says UFO, it takes you to a scientific test of some of the stuff that people said in the Phoenix video. So if you go watch those and then come back, then, because I'm going to do some spoilers again, or you can listen to what I'm going to say and then go watch them, or you can skip the UFO altogether. But I'm going to assume we're all back. Okay. One of the things that happens in the Phoenix video is they actually are conflating two different events. One event, do I have a picture here? No. One event was what appeared to be a flying wing that flew from the northwest corner of Arizona. And if you're familiar with that region of the country at all, that's not far from Area 51. And that Area 51, everybody thinks that there's UFOs there, but what Area 51 is probably for is testing out super secret aircraft. We know for a fact that the B-1 bomber was created. Am I saying the right one? No, stealth bomber. Is that the B-1? The stealth bomber and the stealth fighter were created in Area 51. Okay, so what people in Arizona saw was coming from the northwest corner of Arizona, going all the way across the whole freaking state, down towards the southeast corner. They saw this giant, silent, boomerang-shaped object fly across the night sky, blotting out the stars as it passed over. And it seemed to be moving slowly. It seemed to be enormous, and people couldn't figure out what they were seeing. One hypothesis about that particular event, because it happened over the course of several nights, was that it was the B-1 stealth bomber. And because one of the things that makes it stealthy is it's really quiet. So that is a different event from the one that is actually tested out in the video that says UFO. The video that says UFO is actually testing out the lights that a lot of people saw hovering over Phoenix that seemed to appear and disappear sort of in a random, freaky way. And this scientific test of that is actually talking about that particular event. So when you conflate two things, it leads to pseudoscientific conclusions, because we try and figure out how can you account for what is simultaneously moving from the west towards the east, seems to be in a bat wing shape, and then we've got these lights hovering over. How do we put all this together? Well, it turns out those are two separate events. It turns out that the lights that hovered over Phoenix, they went back in the records, and they've had phone calls to the Air Force Base every year at about that same time of year from people seeing those lights. So there must have been something special about this particular year. Maybe it's because people were on high alert, having seen that wing fly across the state only weeks prior. And so maybe people were on high alert. They saw these lights on the east side of Phoenix and thought it was somehow related. The thing is, we want it to be something exciting. We want it to be UFOs. We want it to be a big secret thing that the government doesn't want to tell us about. We want it to be something interesting. The most interesting explanation is the one that we want to pay attention to. I mean, duh. We like that. It's fun. We embrace pseudoscientific claims because they're interesting. Also, the Barnum Effect is another factor in why we embrace pseudoscientific claims. We have a tendency to accept general descriptions as accurate for ourselves. This is related to homework you guys are going to be doing. See if this launches. So fun. Things don't launch. Okay, so this is a test of the Barnum effect, and what you'll notice is this is actually the Big Five personality inventory. So it's a legit personality inventory that they're going to take. You'll have your participants do, and they answer these questions. It all looks very normal and like an actual personality scale, and it asks you some additional questions: male or female, what's your age, The trick is at the end, it doesn't matter what answers they put. It's going to give them the same personality description anyway. It's a general description that says, you know, you have a lot of talents, but you don't live up to your potential. I mean, just normal, vague things. The Barnum effect says that we tend to accept descriptions that are general enough. If they're kind of positive, it really makes it likely that we'll accept that description as true for ourselves. So the Barnum effect does a really good job of explaining why we embrace astrology. I mean, the predictions made by astrology are vague enough to describe really anyone. We already tested that previously. They're generally reasonably positive. They tell you about things that you can strive towards. They tell you, about your good qualities mostly. Occasionally they'll tell you about a shortcoming, something you should work on, but for the most part, they're pretty positive. Because we have this tendency to accept as true things that are general descriptions that are true of everybody, it makes us think that the source of that information is accurate. So when we get our palm read, we go, wow, you are right on. When the medium tells us something about our loved one, we say, wow, how'd you know that? Well, you know what? I was just playing the odds. It's just a general description, and it was probably true of your loved one. That's the Barnum effect. We embrace that kind of pseudoscience, like astrology and psychics and stuff like that, because it's general enough that it sounds accurate. Now, what kind of evidence do pseudoscientists rely on? Well, testimonials. Testimonials are where we get users, supposedly, that report that the treatment worked for them. So we have Laura here, who claims that she started taking Proactol and lost a bunch of weight. Of course, let's look at this. By taking Proactol and having a radical diet change. Did you try the radical diet change without the Proactol and then introduce the Proactol afterwards? Did you do any kind of controlled study? No. Assuming that what she's saying is true. Let's just assume that what she's saying is true. It's not controlled, right? So one shortcoming of testimonial evidence is that we have no control over it. There was no control group to compare her performance to. She might have just spontaneously lost weight because, look, she's 22. Maybe she's reached her full size, she's gotten how she's going to be, and now she's losing her baby fat. Maybe that's what it is. Could be spontaneous remission, it's called. If you click on this link, you have a really cute Monty Python, she turned me into a newt, but I got better kind of video. It's very brief. I always like to insert a little humor into these lectures because they can be a little dry, but you have to do it yourself when we're online. So it could be just that you were going to change anyway. It had nothing to do with the treatment. It could be that I gave you a pretest and then I gave you some kind of treatment, but really the treatment didn't matter. Just the act of being tested again caused you to move a little closer to the mean. This is called regression towards the mean. What we find is that anybody who's especially in the outlying areas, I'm gesturing with my little pointer finger, so hopefully you guys can see it, in this blue area up here, anybody who's in that outlying area has a really high probability of regressing closer to the mean on a second test. Anytime you're an outlier, you can think about a time when maybe you were in a class where maybe you were the high scorer on an exam or the low scorer on an exam, and then on the next exam in that same class, you moved closer to the mean. No longer were you the high scorer, no longer were you the low scorer, you moved closer to the mean. That's just called regression towards the mean. Nothing else necessarily changed except for that you moved more towards the normal range. So They, you might have, these two examples are cases where the testimonial is sincere. The person really feels like this treatment worked for them, but it might be that something else was going on. So regression towards the mean is when the initial measurement is extreme, subsequent measurements tend to be closer to the mean. I'm going to wrap this up, and then you guys can go watch a video that relates to it. You have got to watch this video, okay? The other ones have been recommendations, but this one you have got to watch. Okay. Another issue with testimonials is that they don't test competing explanations. So it's possible that something else would account for the behavior, like with Laura, who lost all the weight with Proactol and a radical diet change. Maybe it was just the radical diet change, but nobody tested that explanation. Nobody had a group of people who just did a radical diet change and a group of people who did a radical diet change plus Proactol and a group of people who just took Proactol. Why don't we do that too, right? None of that is done. We don't test competing explanations. We don't have that control group. We don't use random assignment. We don't randomly decide who's going to get the active ingredient and who's not. All we have is people who have volunteered for it and therefore might be really motivated to report a good outcome. So problems. Could be due to placebo effect. They really, really, really want it to work. They really, really, really want Proactol to be a weight loss drug. And so as a function of their desire for it to be true, they make it true. That's called the placebo effect. And then my final example, and again, like I said, watch this as a slideshow and watch this video and see what I mean by you can't always trust the source. In that little ad that I just showed you with Laura, who knows if she's even, they might have got that picture off the internet and it has nothing to do with Proactol, right? So watch this video. It's a what would you do, John Quinones video, and you've got to watch it. I will give you a hint. You've got to watch it because I actually even asked you a question on the exam about it. So watch that video, and then I will see you guys in the next segment where I will be talking about why these testimonials are so persuasive.